Good morning from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. It's the 4th of May 2025 and the time in Brisbane is 10:57 a.m. Sunday. It's a beautiful day but rain's forecast, so yesterday started off just as exquisite and ended up raining too, so it is what it is, people of Earth. You've just got to take the weather with you and be the sunshine in your own life, am I right? But I could be out in the sunshine right now, enjoying it while it lasts, but I felt inspired to continue reading bloody Brisbane to you. So on we go and on we go. Chapter 9, Last Drinks, The Hamilton Hammer Horror, 1953, written by Jack Sim. And on the left we have the Ferguson Mansion, the site of the Hamilton murder, source private collection of J. Sim, and below Judge and Jury, Mr. Justice Townley, in light suit at right of police officer at the foot of the steps. The jury first inspected the large area under the home and then the ground floor from the Courier Mail Library, file number N/CR158. It's a beautiful home, isn't it? And there's the man in the pale coloured suit, which kind of stands out. It's good that he wore that, otherwise he just would have been hard to identify, blending in with everybody else. Right. The two men parked the car in the shadows across the street from the luxury home on the corner of Grays and Hamilton Roads. It was 1:30 a.m. They got out of the car and waited silently for the signal. The door would be opened when the coast was clear. Then they would enter the house and do the deed. All the homes around here were expensive. This was Hamilton, home of Brisbane's elite and wealthy. Still is to this day, by the way. Tonight it would be the home to murder. Just one moment, I've left my cup of tea in the kitchen. I've got to have my cup of tea. Right. The front door opened, the signal. They walked across the road. In the main bedroom, under the covers, sound asleep, was the man they had decided to kill. As they entered the room, he awoke. "Take this, you bastard." One of the men raised the hammer and brought it down again and again upon the man's head. One blow smashed through the skull, leaving a large hole the size of the hammer's head. The victim began to gasp. Horrible gurgling sounds came from his lips. He was still alive, certain that their victim would soon be dead from his injuries. They fled the scene in the car. As they crossed the Story Bridge, they stopped the vehicle and threw the blood-soaked hammer into the river far below. One of Brisbane's most cold-blooded crimes had just been committed. Press photographers tried their best to get a shot of her for the evening newspapers, but after weeks of this attention, she knew what to do. Although pulling down her hatband to cover her face shielded her from the reporters, the icy stares of the women in the public gallery penetrated deep. They all wanted to see high society gone bad. She did not disappoint. She walked into court, neatly dressed in a black skirt, short black velvet coat, long black gloves turned back at the wrist, carrying a black bag, and finally a large, wide-brimmed velvet hat trimmed with white lace, the perfect black widow. Before we continue, here's a photograph of killers. William Ernest Hamilton, left, 39, truck driver, and Albert Eric Murphy, 35, brewery worker, leave the Supreme Courthouse handcuffed together. I must say, they've got spiffing suits. It's funny how criminals always look their best in court. Dressed to impress, don't they say? The two men on trial arrived soon after. They were handcuffed together and dressed in rather suave suits indeed. They were escorted by prison warders into the dock. Neither spoke. The mutual hatred was clear. On Monday, 2nd of November 1953, the Supreme Court trial commenced. Number 1 Criminal Court overflowed with people, mostly women, trying to catch a glimpse of the 3 smartly dressed defendants sitting in the dock. 100 members of the public had waited for an hour prior to the trial, to get a seat in the public gallery. Uniformed police monitored the crowds to keep order. Every lurid detail was reported in the newspapers. The story had everything: sex, adultery, lust, greed, revenge, and murder. Every day the defendants ran the gauntlet of reporters, photographers, police, and members of the public, eager to catch a glimpse of 3 infamous characters as they were brought to justice. 2 months earlier, the 3 had originally been charged with having attempted to unlawfully kill 39-year-old Roy Allen Ferguson at his home at Hamilton on Thursday, 20th of August, 1953. Ferguson was a man of considerable assets. In partnership with his brother and hotel properties in New South Wales, they had formed a private company, Brisbane Brewing Proprietary Limited, with a view to opening a brewery in Queensland. Roy clung to life until the afternoon of the next day. Despite having his head smashed in with a hammer, he lived long enough for his brother, who flew up from interstate, to be at his bedside. Roy recovered to tell him, Jack, they told me to shut up. They called me a bastard." Then he lapsed into unconsciousness. Roy died at Tarawan Private Hospital, Clayfield at 1:30 p.m. on the 21st of August 1953 from shocking injuries. Soon after, one of Brisbane's top detectives, Detective Senior Sergeant Tom Donovan of the Fortitude Valley CIB, advised the three accused of the fateful news. The earlier charge of unlawfully attempting to kill was to be dropped. Now the charge became willful murder. None of the accused replied. All three remained silent. The elite of Brisbane's detectives had been hard at work on the case in the 24 hours prior to Roy Ferguson's death. They had already established the means and motive, carefully unravelling a well-thought-out evil plan to commit cold-blooded murder for financial gain. Using a powerful magnet, water police began dragging the river under the Story Bridge in search of the murder weapon. Detective Donovan, a tall, solid man who always was immaculately dressed, initially spoke with Sylvia Joyce Clare Ferguson, 35, at the bedside of her dying husband, then later at the Valley CIB. She claimed that whilst in the lavatory for 3 to 4 minutes, someone had entered their home, assaulted her husband, then vanished. From inside the toilet, she claimed she heard strange gurgling noises, but thought it was her husband's blood pressure, as he often breathed strangely in his sleep. Returning to bed, she discovered her husband's face was covered in blood. The neighbours were summoned. In their presence, the true cause of the sounds was revealed. Her husband had been attacked, and there was a gaping hole in his head. Here's before we continue, killer. Mrs. Sylvia Joyce Clare Ferguson, 35, arriving at the police court from Brisbane Jail, Bogger Road, under police escort. Source the Courier Mail Library, same file number as mentioned before. Detective Donovan pressed Mrs. Ferguson as to who would have had the motivation to attack Ferguson. At first, she seemed to have no idea, but then she insinuated his business partners and brother. She told the detective that a fortnight before, she received a threatening phone call from an unknown man. The voice warned that Roy Ferguson would be shot if he continued development of his Brisbane brewery project. Sylvia told the detective when she told her husband. He merely laughed. He told her not to mention it to his brother. You haven't really been married to Roy Ferguson for 2.5 years, have you? The senior detective confronted Mrs. Ferguson with a lie she had told him earlier. According to a marriage certificate found in the home, the Fergusons had only been married 2.5 months. Sylvia confessed that they had merely been living together for 7 years as husband and wife. They were both still married for some of that time, awaiting their divorces. As far as their friends and family knew, They had been married for years. Then he showed Sylvia letters from Roy referring to £2,500 worth of black money, letters releasing cash kept at the home. Her explanation for such a large sum being left lying around was that Roy was worried that she would need this if something was ever to happen to him. He always said that he could be knocked down and killed by a car at any time. The experienced demon could smell a rat. Acting on information Mrs. Ferguson had provided, Detective Donovan left her and went to the Bellevue Hotel in George Street, the city. There he spoke with Albert Eric Murphy, a wavy-haired, mustachioed 35-year-old who was applying for a job as a waiter. Murphy was asked to accompany him back to the valley. En route, the detective told Murphy that Roy Ferguson had been seriously assaulted, to which Murphy replied, "Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but I hope you don't think that I had anything to do with it." Straight away giveaway. During the drive to the station, Eric Murphy revealed that he had known the Fergusons about 5 years, but claimed he had not seen either for 4 months. Donovan had already done some checking into Murphy's background and knew that this was a lie. Murphy had been working for the Ferguson brothers as the manager of a brewery depot until 2 weeks earlier, when Roy had sacked him allegedly over Murphy's relationship with his wife. 4 days earlier, on Sunday, 16th of August, the unemployed Murphy had flown up to Queensland. Donovan confronted Murphy with the reason why. "You were under the house with Mrs. Ferguson on Tuesday morning." Murphy reacted immediately, strenuously denying they had never been intimate with Sylvia, or that he had returned to Brisbane to renew a long-term affair. He also denied knowing another man named Hamilton. According to Murphy, he claimed that on the night of the assault, he had watched a newsreel before going to bed. Donovan then re-questioned Sylvia Ferguson. Pardon me. She broke down, telling the detective, "I'm frightened. I would like to tell you that I'm afraid of what they might do to me." Sylvia finally confessed that she and Murphy were lovers. He had flown up to Brisbane and forced her to see him at the Hamilton home. He tried to stand over me and wanted me to go away with him. When I wouldn't go, he said, "Well, if I can't get you, he won't have you." She claimed Roy was often drunk and would hit her. "I have had a hard life with Roy at times, and at other times he treated me really well and has given me everything I wanted." Murphy, on the other hand, had told her he loved her. She revealed that the man named Hamilton had been threatening to tell Roy about the affair with Murphy unless she bought him off. Further, she revealed that Hamilton had been in the house the night Roy was attacked. Apparently, Sylvia had run into Hamilton in the hallway when she was returning from the toilet. Fearing that Hamilton might do the same to her, she failed to tell police this important detail. Donovan bluffed Mrs. Ferguson, telling her that he believed she was responsible for the injuries to her husband. Finally she blurted out, "I didn't do it. It was Ernie Hamilton." William Ernest Hamilton, 39, a truck driver by trade, was then approached. He was adamant that he did not kill Roy, whom he claimed was a good friend. According to Hamilton, Ferguson was going to give him a job in the new brewery. Hamilton admitted he knew there was £2,500 in the home and that he had gone to the house with Murphy to steal the cash, not to kill. He claimed that it was Murphy who did the killing and that Eric and Sylvia were trying to implicate him in the crime. Later, Murphy admitted his love for Sylvia, but not the assault. Either way, Sylvia was implicated. Trial sorted it all out. The Crown case was simple. Sylvia Ferguson and Eric Murphy were lovers. They hired Ernie Hamilton to kill Roy Ferguson in exchange for the black money. When Hamilton couldn't bring himself to kill Roy, Murphy did it. Hamilton's counsel tried to get in a separate trial, but the Crown and Justice Townley would have none of it. On day 5 of the trial, the jury was allowed to inspect the Ferguson house to see the lighting of the home at night prior to the defence giving evidence. Justice Townley and the jury were conveyed by coach to the mansion. A large crowd lined Grays Road to observe firsthand the legal process at work. The trial lasted 11 days. On the 14th of November 1953, after a mere hour and 40 minutes, the jury found all 3 guilty of willful murder. They were sentenced to life imprisonment. Murphy and Hamilton later appealed their conviction on the grounds they did not receive a fair trial because of adverse media publicity. The appeal failed. Sylvia Ferguson did not appeal but maintained her innocence via letters sent from within Boggo Road Jail's female division. Amidst great public outcry, she was released from prison in the 1960s. Hamilton and Murphy quietly served their sentences inside Brisbane prison as lifers. They were released shortly after. Ferguson eventually moved to Western Queensland and became a housekeeper for a wealthy grazier. When it was discovered that the femme fatale was living in the area, the local radio station was inundated by requests to play If I Had a Hammer. Oh, that's sick, but kind of fun. If I Had a Hammer by musicians Peter, Paul and Mary. DJs would obliviously dedicate the song to Sylvia. Aussie larrikin sense of humour can be a bit fucking cruel at times. Right, where are we? Chapter 10. The Rampage of Killer Kast. K-A-S-T sounds German. Terror on the Terrace, 1955, written by Ken Blanche. Here's the photos. The killer's route from Wickham Terrace to Ballet Chambers down Wickham Terrace was deliberate and well planned. Doesn't look all that impressive. It's just a matter of going out one door, walking 100 yards and going in another door. A little bit of over-dramatisation there, but anyway. And the photo below shows bomb fragments, igniting candle, bombs in piping, and some urn in front of it that has nothing to do with it, I don't think. Unexploded piping bombs being guarded by a detective in the vestibule of Wickham House. The candle used by the killer, Karl Kast, spelt with a K, definitely German, possibly Dutch, to ignite his bombs is lying on the floor. It was here that Mr. George Boland was wounded while attempting to stop one of the bombs exploding. Right, you are people of Earth. Let's cut to the story. The voice was familiar, and I froze as it commanded, "Don't move." Crouched in the gloom of the unlit entry foyer of Wickham Chambers at the upper Edward Street corner of Brisbane's famous street of doctors was Queensland Police scientific expert, Senior Sergeant Les Bardwell. As I stood motionless in obedience to his urgent instruction and watched, he lifted a piece of metal piping from the floor and placed it gingerly in a shoebox lined with cotton wool. "They're bombs," he explained, indicating several other similar objects scattered across the foyer floor. "Don't touch them." On that day, 1st of December 1955, I backed carefully out of the foyer, thankful that I hadn't become the fifth victim of a madman named Siegfried Karl Kast. Kast, a 39-year-old German-born seafarer who had jumped ship in Brisbane 13 years before, gave no warning before he began his shooting and bombing outrage just before 3 o'clock on that hot summer afternoon. Investigators who later backtracked on Karl Kast's life in Australia discovered that the short, 160 centimetres, blue-eyed, blonde-haired salesman had been born in Erding in the German province of Bavaria near the Swiss border. Kast had arrived in Brisbane as Europe neared the brink of World War II on 30th of June 1939 as a fireman on the German freighter SS Halle after a voyage from Bremen, and had claimed to be a refugee from political persecution who had been sent to a concentration camp by the Gestapo, the secret Nazi German police. He disappeared before the ship sailed from Brisbane and was later charged with being a deserter, but the charge was never prosecuted in court, and Kast travelled to Sydney, Adelaide and Melbourne before returning to Queensland and taking a job at the Kalamia sugar mill in North Queensland. He was working there when Australia declared war on Germany on 3rd of September 1939 and was among the first 100, prisoner number Q57, of several thousand enemy aliens to be interned in Queensland as security risks. Kust claimed to have been an anti-Hitler activist. My God, he was handsome. Never mind. Just because someone's pretty doesn't mean they're a good person, am I right? That's all I have to say about that. Claimed to have been an anti-Hitler activist, but was, nevertheless, locked up for more than 3 years before being released to join the Civil Alien Corps in 1943 and being sent to the Northern Territory to work on defence projects under military discipline. His application for release was supported by a petition signed by more than 50 of his fellow workers at Kalamia Mill, who vouched for his often expressed anti-Nazi views. Kust was a thorn in the side. Oh, let me just show you before we get going. It's got very, very lovely kissable lips. But he's a murderer, so we won't go there, girlfriends. You get women that fall in love with prisoners and serial killers and psychopaths and idiots in jails, you know, and then they marry them. It's really odd. Like, why would you do that? Like, for fuck's sake. Anyway, well, probably that's what it's about. Just wanting to have that attachment to infamy and feel important for 5 minutes. And, well, anyway, I tell you though, with his looks, where I if I was young back in the day, well, we won't go there, girlfriends and guy friends. Mama T was a high caliber woman, even though she was a housing commission. With disability pension, gets shucked off by idiots. Never mind. Life is good, people of Earth. Freedom, joy, success in all my undertakings, am I right? No longer being loosh fed on. They had a good feed for a good long time, though. Now they starve. Don't worry. People like that always find a new source of supply. Won't be quite the same flavour though, will it? One has to have a little giggle about that. Kust was a thorn in the side of military authorities during his wartime detention. He escaped 5 times, so he was clever as well. Don't look at me like that, Kust. Don't look at me like that. Anyway. Literally, the man's got charisma, even though it's just a photo. Let's just cover him up with a bookmark, shall we? We won't be looking at him. We won't be looking at him. The last time I had an attraction like that, it was to Travis Fimmel in Vikings. Oh, that was hilarious. Oh, Travis, wherever you are, you were a wonderful Viking, my darling. Anyway. He escaped 5 times. His first break was from Gaythorne prison camp on the outskirts of Brisbane, only 3 months into his confinement. He remained free for 8 days before being recaptured and sent to detention for 14 days. Kust was then sent to the infamously tough camp at Tatura in Victoria. Tatura was considered a high security compound, but Kust managed to break free from it on 4 occasions, with each escape being followed by a period of punitive detention for up to 28 days after recapture. Oh my goodness. I bet you the reason he kept escaping was those kissable lips. He was hoping to get some, am I right? Anyway, also bloody mindedness. His impressive escape record showed that he broke free on 20th of December 1937. Let's have a look again. Women of Brisbane, look at this fine specimen. I'm not normally drawn to Germans because in my ancestry there was a history dialects, but he's a fine specimen. He really is. And also he was anti-Hitler, which makes him a good bloke in my view. Anyone anti-Nazi has got a little bit of fucking couth and grace and intelligence and the right political inclinations, and is a humanitarian of sorts. Can't keep us down, can you? We humanitarians that fight for our freedom. Anyway. His impressive escape record showed, I mean, you have to laugh. His impressive escape record showed that he broke free on 20th of December 1939. He wasn't going to spend Christmas in prison, you understand. And was free for 7 days, spending Christmas on the run. He escaped again on 1st of October 1940 and was at large for 10 days. On 31st of March 19... This is all before he did this dreadful bombing, by the way. This is escaping from the concentration camps we had here in Queensland for, anyone of Japanese or German descent. It's a real thing that she did that, put quite innocent people into camps. My former employee, who was the great niece of Hermann Goering, said her grandparents were put in the camp here in Queensland because they were a direct relation, so they feared that they would be passing messages across, between Goering and Australia and doing anti-government deeds that way, which when you think about it is a bit ridiculous, but I suppose it's possible that could have happened, but didn't. Anyway. Where were we? He escaped again on 1st of October 1940 and was at large for 10 days. On 31st of March 1943, he achieved another 9 days of freedom, and he made his final... I'm starting to love this guy even more. Stop it, Tanya, just stop. I'm joking, actually. I like decent, honouring, respectful, kind, human men. Let me know when I find one, people of Earth. I mean, for a lover, not I have wonderful, decent, honouring friends. I'm talking about when I finally take a lover. I have to be a good one. On 31st of March 1943, he achieved another 9 days of freedom, and he made his final escape on 4th of April 1943 and was awarded 28 days punishment on his recapture. I don't specify what kind of punishment, but I'm assuming solitary confinement. An intelligence officer wrote of him, "This man is an individualist and something of a philosopher, believing in the right of self-expression and self-determination." Oh yes, baby boy, I'm with you there. He has previously volunteered for service with the Civil Construction Corps, and in the opinion of the writer, would be a good, honest worker. His background of escapes has no bearing on his political outlook, being a means of avoiding mental stagnation. Writing quite kindly of his misdemeanours. An adventurous and intelligent type of man. He impressed an intelligence officer, so it speaks volumes, doesn't it? Give us a kiss. Right. Oh, you have to have a bit of fun before you die, people. That's all I have to say But another intelligence report, anyway, he's old enough to be my son in this photo. And he's probably long dead. Probably lost all those beautiful looks by the time he was my age too, as you do. It's one of those things that comes with aging. Anyway, where was I? But another intelligence report described his arrival back in Tatura camp after one of his... Stop looking at me, Cast. Just stop it now. Oh, I had a really weird dream this morning. It was semi-erotic. I got kissed by a now avowed enemy of mine. And I was like, that didn't even happen in real life. Why are you kissing me now? I woke up from the kiss too and I was like, what the fuck? What the fuck? But that's never going to happen now, is it, babies? I've got other gorgeous ghosts and bilocating cars to kiss. You have to laugh. Anyway, it was a very strange dream. Very, very strange. Trying to send energy to me. You will starve and you will flail, baby boy. Right, where were we? I'll just go back to that sentence. But another intelligence report described his arrival back in Tatura camp after one of his escapes. The notorious SK Cust recently arrived at the gates of number 2 camp and was allocated to A compound, a Nazi and fascist organisation. Cust's fame as an escapologist apparently preceded him, as he was met at the gate by the leading lights of number 2. In other words, they thought he was somewhat of an anti-hero. Whether they thought they had found a new and valuable friend in Cust, or whether they were greeting one of their own, will never be certain. The blurb under this rather attractive photograph says, Siegfried Karl Cust, ship's deserter, wartime internee, escapee, and finally, demented and bloody mass murderer. So, although you're pretty, darling, it didn't go very good for you at the end, did it? Murdering innocent people. Have a good look at the face of evil, people. He looks so sweet and innocent there. You can never tell. You can never tell. Here's another photograph of police scientist. Detective Senior Sergeant Les Bardwell with the remains of the Cust-made bomb. The Courier Mail Library source. Right. Cust worked at various jobs in New South Wales and Queensland after his discharge from the Civil Alien Corps at the end of World War II. He applied for permanent admission to Australia in June 1948 while he was working as an art salesman in Sydney. But he returned to Queensland and was employed as a powder monkey. What is a powder monkey? For Cairns City Council on a water supply construction project before making a compensation claim for injuries he said resulted from a fall at work. I need to know what a powder monkey is. Dear Goddess, the things I still don't know astonish me. A powder monkey is a term primarily associated with the age of sail, referring to a young boy who carried gunpowder from the ship's magazine to the cannons during naval battles. They were often as young as 10 or 14 years old and were crucial for the efficient operation of artillery. The term also describes a person who carries or is in charge of explosives in other contexts, like blasting operations. Right, they were chosen for having small size, so that's why they were mostly young boys, I guess because he was so short, being only 160 centimetres tall. He was the perfect height for a job like that. Right, where were we? When Northern specialists could find no injuries that were causing what he claimed was constant back pain, he was sent to Brisbane for examination, and it was then that he met his future medico victims. Cust had gone to a weekly newspaper, the now defunct Truth. Only a week before, he went berserk to complain about what he saw as the non-helpfulness of the doctors. But Ron Richards, then a junior reporter of the newspaper, which he was later to control as editor and manager, and who interviewed him about his supposed injury, dismissed him as a harmless crank. My first indication of the Wickham Terrace massacre came when a silent number telephone rang on my police rounds desk at the old Brisbane Telegraph office in Queen Street. There's been a shooting at Bellow Chambers on Wickham Terrace, the familiar but cryptic voice of Inspector A.B. Nobby Clark, then Inspector in charge of the Valley Police District, said before he hung up. I don't think that's cryptic at all. I think that's pretty fucking straightforward, actually. Maybe had a reputation for being cryptic. It was late in the day for the Telegraph, which had only one more edition to print, but photographer Keith Morris and I headed for the terrace by car. The scene that confronted us there was totally unexpected. Fire engines were deployed outside the Bellow and Wickham Chambers buildings. Police cars and ambulances seemed to be everywhere in the cordoned-off street, and hundreds of curious sightseers were milling around the footpath, oblivious to the dangers of unexploded bombs. A huge hole gaped where a window had been blown out of Bellow Chambers. The then chief of the CIB, Inspector, later Commissioner Frank Bishop, had arrived to take charge of the crime scene personally. When police finally sorted out the sequence of events, they found that Cust had gone first to the rooms of orthopaedic surgeon Dr. Michael Joseph Gallagher in Wickham Chambers at 2:50 p.m. and walked into a room where the doctor was seeing a patient. Rude. He levelled a pistol at Dr. Gallagher, shooting him in the right hand, chest and right leg. Imagine how the patient felt. Then the madman. Let's go back to that beautiful face of madman. Madman. My father was very handsome too, also mad. He didn't shoot anybody, to my knowledge. Don't think so anyway. Then the madman ran to the foyer of the building, where he took 4 homemade bombs and a stub of candle from a satchel he was carrying. Cust threw 3 of the bombs into a corner and lit the 4th, which he threw down before dashing into the street. Hendro racing trainer George Boland, who was on his way to see another doctor in the building, grabbed the bomb and tried to stub out the burning wick on the tiled floor. How brave was that? Also crazy, but brave. It exploded, tearing 3 fingers from his left hand. Let me just show you some more photos. Killed and menaced. Dr. Meehan, top, shot dead by Carl Cust. Dr. Gallagher, above, shot 3 times but survived. Dr. J.R.L. Lars, right, who struggled with the killer before breaking away to give the alarm. Dr. Lars was admitted to hospital. So these 2 men survived and this one did not. Cust had meanwhile run 50 metres along Wickham Terrace to Bellow Chambers, where he entered the rooms of Dr. Arthur Vincent Meehan. The doctor looked up from treating a patient as Cust entered his surgery. Excuse me, and was shot once in the chest with the pistol the madman carried. He died within minutes. Oh, excuse me. Cust then ran to the back of the building and climbed a flight of stairs to Dr. Andrew Russell Murray's rooms. He pushed into the surgery where Dr. Murray was working on a male patient on an examination table and said, "There's been an accident downstairs." As the doctor turned towards him, Cust fired 1 shot that hit him fatally in the chest. Cust then headed for Dr. Rudolf Sergius Lars's surgery at the other end of the corridor. Dr. Lars's nurse, Sister V. Kelly, had by this time investigated the commotion downstairs and told her boss that Dr. Meehan had been shot. She and Dr. Lars were on their way out of the surgery to assist Dr. Meehan when Cust pushed his way in through a set of swinging doors. Dr. Lars later told an inquest. As I went out of the surgery door, Cust met me with a gun in his hand and pointed it at my chest. He ordered me, he forced me back into my consulting room and said, "Get in there." He ordered me into the examination room and pointed the gun at me. I entered the examination room with my 2 women staff following me. One of the women slammed the door, leaving Cust in the consulting room. Later investigations left no doubt that Cust had intended to kill Dr. Lars. But the doctor was able to leave the building through his office and call the CIB. Cust panicked. He locked himself in the doctor's rooms. Taking the pistol, he shot himself in the head. Then, although mortally wounded, he took a stick of gelignite fitted with a short fuse from his bomb satchel, tucked it into his belt, and lit it. The resultant explosion rocked the building and sent coins from his pockets ripping through the walls and ceiling like shrapnel. Let's look at this madman again. Why did you do that, Cust? Why? Kill all those people and then kill yourself in such a determined way. Didn't want to have to escape prison ever again, I suppose. But still, horrific way to go about killing yourself. Not once, but twice. Says a lot, doesn't it? Detective Constable Peter Best, an off-duty policeman who was in the building awaiting a medical appointment, helped another policeman to break down the locked door. They found Cust dying slumped across a desk in which the bomb had blown a gaping hole. You'd think he would have died instantly, wouldn't you? Must have been a horrific death, blown to pieces, but you're still bloody well alive. Wow, there you go. He would have been fair pissed off about that, I can tell. Cust later died in hospital. The next morning at the city morgue, Government Medical Officer Dr. John L. Tong conducted autopsies on the body of Cust and Drs. Meehan and Murray. The deluded patient, was buried in a pauper's grave in Toowong Cemetery in a plain black box. His only farewell prayer was recited by the cemetery's then assistant sexton, Mr. G. Hughes. As I watched, Killer Carl Cust was then lowered into the earth. Dr. Gallagher, who survived to give evidence at the inquest into the deaths of his murdered colleagues, recalled that after Cust shot him the first time, he asked him what was the meaning of his behaviour. I thought he replied, "It is to do with spies." Dr. Gallagher said, "But apparently," he said, "it is to do with spines." I suppose being left in chronic pain, not being listened to, probably because he was German and the enemy. Back in the 50s it was really like that. My mother experienced a lot of persecution in New Zealand when she arrived in 1956, just for being German. So in this case, this man just lost his mind over the constant othering and lack of protection and proper medical assistance. And I kind of get it. Maybe not to that extreme though, but I get why he was fucking angry. First of all, being put in a concentration camp when you were anti-Hitler and hadn't done anything wrong, and then left in chronic pain. Anyway, it doesn't mean that I approve of what he did, by the way, but I just can see the trajectory of how all that unravelling came into play. All of the medico victims of the Wickham Terrace bloodbath had examined Cust previously. He had been referred to them over a period of months by the State Government Insurance Office, which in those days handles the bulk of Queensland's workers' compensation business, for what he was convinced was a workplace injury. The doctors could find no evidence of his assertion. At least one, Dr. Lars, had declined to treat him. Ironically, the post-mortem examination proved conclusively that Cust had suffered no identifiable spinal injury. So I wonder where the source of all that pain came from then, because he must have felt that he was in pain to really lose his shit like that. Anyway, as doctor after doctor reported that they could find nothing wrong with him, but his pain continued, frustration built in the German's mind until it exploded into a day of bloody death. The actual bombs built by Carl Cust are on display at the Police Museum, Queensland. For the full story of this crime, read Murder Trail's True Crime Casebook, The Rampage of Killer Cust, Terror on the Terrace by Ken Blanche. Death scene. A police constable examines Cust's .38 caliber Smith & Wesson revolver amid the shambles of the doctor's room where he suicided. Note the hole in the desktop from the bomb he exploded. Chapter 11. Intruder in the Night, The Coorparoo Murderer, 1964, written by Jack Sir. Here we have the crime scene, the site of the Coorparoo murders, the shop at the rear of which the double murder was committed. I actually know that building still exists. Pretty sure I've seen that building. Down below, detectives search for clues in the charred interior of the victim's bedroom. The source of the photo below of the charred remains is from the Courier Mail, Monday 23rd of March 1964, page 3. At Wollongabba CIB, detectives advised a youth he was going to be asked questions relating to the terrible crime at Coorparoo Junction. He was warned that he was not obliged to answer. Before agreeing to their conversation being recorded on a typewriter, James Christopher Whiteford quietly told Detective Sergeant Murphy, "Look, this is the biggest decision I've ever had to make in my life. I mean, if I'm going to tell you everything about it." Chris Whiteford was an 18-year-old trainee chemist employed at the Brisbane abattoir, the meat boards plant and chemical laboratory at Cannon Hill. He asked for 10 minutes to compose his thoughts. Then, at Whiteford's request, Detective Murphy was recalled to the interview room. For several hours, the polite, handsome young man with brown eyes and dark hair was questioned before being taken to the burnt-out apartment. Based on the information received, arrangements were made for the water police to commence searching the Brisbane River around the Mowbray Park ferry pontoon. Slowly, through a murderer's own words, a clear picture of exactly what had happened that dreadful night emerged. Around 11:30 p.m. on Saturday, 21st of March 1964, Whiteford went to the rear of Gracie's shop. With him, Whiteford had his burglar's kit, a leather overnight bag containing tools, including a hacksaw and glass cutter. From the kit, he took a pair of surgical rubber gloves and put them on, a woman's nylon stocking, which he pulled over his face to hide and distort his features. I'm sorry, I'm still laughing. I had a homeless friend named Brian. Did that once. I used to, at the end of my night of dancing till 3 or 4 in the morning, I used to wear stay-up stockings so I could remove them at the end of the night because I'd be writhing in agony from dancing in high heels all night. So as soon as I got outside the Treasury Casino, I would, tuck my hand under my skirt and pull down my stay-ups and take off my shoes. And George the busker playing guitar, he just used to look at me with great amusement. Couldn't see anything because it was, discreet. But I suppose it must have looked quite strange, me pulling my clothes off at the end of the night before I'd even got home. But it was just, I was in pain, man. I was in fucking pain. He'd look at me and I'd go, I'm in pain. I don't do pain. Okay, Tanya, just keep playing, George, and I'll keep dancing. So then Brian would come along. But this particular time was actually on my birthday. 2014 it was. 12th of April 2014. And Brian came along, of course, out of his mind. He was always inebriated. Homeless man. What else is he going to do with his time? But he was a lovely man, actually, and always very kind to me and very courtly and a gentleman. Treated me like a princess. Nothing overly romantic, just a true friend to me he was. He was in love with some woman. I dropped him round there one time. Where did she live? Stone's Corner. But anyway, he, I think it was his wife, previous wife or something, and they were still seeing each other. It was weird, but anyway. But look, he was lovely to me. Anyway, I said to him, it's my birthday, Brian. Oh, happy birthday. And anyway, we're hanging around with George. George used to get pissed off because we'd get so excited to see each other that I'd talk really loudly and he'd be all excited. Used to annoy George if I got too excited or loud, because he was trying to maintain a professional demeanour as a busker out the front of Elizabeth Street exit, am I right? Or entrance to the casino. And so I'd go, okay, I'll tone it down for you, Georgie. And, I was fond of George too. Also quite bonkers he was. But anyway, we were all bonkers together. We had the best time sometimes. Some of my best nights were at the end of dancing all night at the casino, hanging out with the homeless people and George. So anyway, so this particular night, I'd taken off my stockings. They were beautiful patterned lacy stockings, like they were really fucking sexy. And I had my boots in my hand, high-heeled boots. I know it was sexy fucking boots too. Oh, it's such a shame now that I'm old I can't wear them anymore. But I might try them on occasionally, just for old time's sake. Anyway, so so I don't know how it came about that Brian got his hands on my stocking. But anyway, he must have said, give that to me. I gave it to him because I don't care. I'm tired at the end of the night. And next thing I know, he'd put it over his head and he was all, his nose sticking out of the lace of my stockings, and he was like, it was hilarious. So I took photos of him, of course, put it up on my Facebook. There's photos of him and I together, him wearing my stocking over his head. I suppose in his mind he was thinking he looks all gangster and thug and cool, He just looked crazy as fuck. But anyway, we had fun, him and I. Lovely, lovely man. Even my other friend Katrina, who was a homeless lady, she had a lot of time for Brian too. He really was a lovely man. Anyway, where was I? Oh, one time Brian waited for me outside. This was back in the day when I used to dance at Irish Murphy's, so it must have still been 2014. And one time he waited for me very discreetly. I'm dancing, doing my wild mosh, my wild dancing on my infamous spot, which was right near the front door in the corner of the stage. And I'm going off, stomping around, doing my thing. And I look out the windows out onto Elizabeth Street, and I see Brian just sitting on the steps of the building opposite, just arms folded, just watching me through the windows from across the street, watching me, strut my stuff. So I looked at him like this and I gave him a little wave. He gave me a little wave too. I kept dancing till the gig finished, which is what I maintain my professionalism with my performance art, which, by the way, I never got paid for. Treated like an asshole at the end, didn't I? But anyway, never mind. No harm, no foul. I had many years of wonderful times. So I waited till the gig finished, and he waited patiently too. He was watching me the whole time. Oh, he was a sweetheart. He really was. So I went out and had to go across the pedestrian crossing, wait for the lights to turn green to walk across. And, "What you doing, Brian?" He says, "Watching you, Tanya." I was like, "Oh, Brian, that's officially called stalking, mate." And we just joked about it. He was like, "Yeah, no worries, Tanya." I said, "I knew you'd come and see me at the end of the night." I said, "How'd you know that, Brian?" He's like, "Oh, 'cause I know you love me, really." I went, "Oh, I kind of do, Brian. You're a very nice man." He said, "I'm a homeless man." And he said, "I've been in jail and I've had a hell of a life and I've done some terrible things." And I'm looking at him and I said to him, "No, you haven't." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "You're a lovely man, and in my eyes you will always be a lovely man, and whatever you've done, you've served your time and you've redeemed yourself, and you're a lovely man." He looked at me, he almost burst into tears. He really did. Because, with his, mental illness, you don't know how much was delusional and how much was real too. You're thinking that he was some ex-murderer or something. For all I know, he might have been. Not an ex-murderer, but I won't tell you what he said he did. Anyway, that's confidential between him and I. But anyway, I said, "It's a terrible thing that happened to you, Brian, that you were the cause of. A terrible thing, but you've paid for it." And anyway, I said, "And it's between you and God. It's got nothing to do with me," I said. And he just looked at me and burst into tears. Anyway, we walked across together, back over the road, and there's a little alleyway behind Irish Murphy's between the buildings. People go, I don't know what they do, get high out the back mostly, I think. They used to in the old days. But anyway, I know. Fuck it. It's truth though. Anyway, so we're standing in this alleyway. It's all got this very nice graffiti type murals. And we took some. "Can I have a photo with you, Tanya?" He used to treat me like I was some kind of celebrity, which was sweet. I went, "What do you want a photo with me for, Brian? I'm short and fat. I'm not even that attractive." He goes, "I just want a photo with you, please." So I took photos of him. And then I couldn't work out how to send him the photos. But look, he was so thrilled having a photo with the Tanya. It was really quite sweet. And and then eventually he just kind of, around about 2015-16, just disappeared. I said to Katrina, "Where's our Brian? Haven't seen him around anymore. Has he died? Is he in jail?" Because he constantly was getting put in and out of jail because he was a homeless man and he'd get violent from time to time, I think. I think that was part of it. Anyway, we put him in rehab and bring him out. I'm not sure what went on with all of that actually, to be honest. Not my monkey, not my circus, am I right? And he disappeared. And Katrina vowed and declared that he'd been in jail. They'd cleaned him up, got him a haircut, got him sorted, got him an apartment somewhere in Paddington, she said, and got him a job. Well, he was in his late 50s at the time. So I said, are you sure? I said, "Are you sure that's happened?" "Yes," she said, "he's all right." She said, "We'll probably never see him again, but he's all right now." I have a feeling she told me a little fib because she knew I'd be fucking devastated if I found out he died. He was that sweet and kind to me. He really was a real man. Like, as far as dealing with me with my trauma issues, he was just so kind. There were times I'd come out and I'd be like, "I'm not well tonight, Brian, I've had to deal with too many fucking animals tonight. I'm feeling a bit homicidal. He'd be like, oh, love, don't worry, I'm here. And he would just cheer me up. He was so lovely. Really lovely. I want to cry when I think about it. But anyway. Then there was the time that he took me skip diving. And this is a hilarious story about Brian too. So he took me skip diving. There was a skip full of all these really wonderful things that people had thrown out. They must have been wealthy people. It was appalling what they threw. A cashmere jacket. I think I gave it to that idiot Dave. Don't think he ever wore it either because he's an idiot. Fucking cashmere blue beautiful jacket. I wanted to give it to Jared, but it was too small for him, so I gave it to Dave. Honestly, the things you do when you're in love, right? Anyway, I should have kept it for myself because it was just beautiful, but it was a man's jacket, but I could have pulled it off. Anyway, there was that, and there was all this other stuff I ended up giving to my former friend Gail and her granddaughter. And anyway, it was amazing what we found. But the reason why he took me there was he said there were 12 bottles of top shelf spirits that we went to collect. And after I'd been fossicking through the skip for a couple of hours, he said, yeah, I think I might have told one of the other homeless men and they've already taken the booze. I was like, damn you, Brian, damn you. And we were laughing. I said, never mind, I've got some lovely things. Thank you for taking me here, you know. And then another time he took me skip jumping down the back of some supermarket. I think it was at Greenslopes or Stone's Corner. Anyway, we get there and he's all excited. He found a tray of prawns. I said, Brian, do not take those prawns. But they're prawns, Tanya, and they look okay. And I went, they look okay, but they're prawns. You can kill people with shellfish. It's very, very dangerous. You can get salmonella poisoning. You could die, Brian. No, I'm going to eat these prawns. And I'm like, I don't even want them in my car. They smell. I hate the smell of fish. They didn't smell too bad, though. Like they didn't smell off. But they'd been in the bloody skip for about 6 hours, so they weren't refrigerated. Hear what I'm saying here? And I'm like, don't eat them, Brian. And I said, promise me you won't eat them, Brian. Promise me, because otherwise I'm responsible for you fucking dying. He says, I won't die, and they're prawns, Tanya, they're prawns. He was so off his head. I should have known better. I should have just taken them off and thrown them in the bin, but I was a little bit scared of him because he was bigger than me. He might fight me for these fucking prawns, you know. So then I went, all right, Brian. I said, just don't eat too many, okay? Promise me. Oh, no, love, no, I'll be right. So anyway, yes, I'm laughing because you can see how the story's going to go. So the following week, because I used to go out weekly, always did for years, the following weekend I go out and I'm down up at the casino and I come out and I find, go hang out with George for a while. Brian comes walking up the street. I said, how'd you go with those fucking prawns, Brian? Oh, love. The way he said it, I was like, oh my God, you did not eat the whole tray. No, I ate about half a dozen of them, Tanya. And then what happened, Brian? He said, I had the squirts. He says, I squirted all over Brisbane. He said it was really bad because I couldn't control it, and half the time there was no toilets. It was so bad. He said, I thought I might die. And I'm looking at him, and I said to him, are you an idiot? I told you not to. I begged you not to eat them. And he just looked at me and laughed, and he went, that you did, love. That you did. You did warn me multiple times. Anyway, we cried with laughter. Oh, it's not funny, Brian. You could have died. He went, I know. I think I've left half of my arsehole somewhere in Brisbane City. I may never get it back. And I was like, I love you, Brian, but you're a maniac. And he was like, I love you too, Tanya. But he was like, don't ever let me eat rotten prawns ever again. I went, well, I didn't let you. I warned you. I begged you. Anyway, I'm still laughing about that. I don't think the prawns is what killed him, though. Maybe he really did get a job and a haircut and lived happily ever after. Let's hope so, eh? Brian, if you're watching this video, I still love you, baby boy. You maniac. But anyway, we had some funny times. We had some really funny times. And it was all platonic and respectful and almost sometimes playful and childlike, like that time in the alley behind that Irish Murphy's when we were taking photos, and I had a lovely silk handkerchief type dress on that was all strappy because it was summer and really hot, and I looked lovely, and he's just looking at me going, you look so lovely, Tanya, like you really are lovely. He said, if I wasn't in love with my missus, he says, I would really, really like you. And I'm like, fuck me, as a homeless man, this is going to be a recipe for disaster. So I'd go, Brian, you know we're just friends and there's no funny stuff ever going to happen. Oh, I know, Tanya, but you look beautiful tonight. And I really did look beautiful that night. I've got the photos to prove it. Sweet. He was good for me. He was a good, kind friend. Out in the night, almost acting a bit like a protective kind of angel watching out for me. Like that night, he waited for me all night. I said, why did you wait for me all night long, Brian? He said, just had a funny feeling that I should be around, Tanya. And I looked at him and I went, okay, Brian, I respect that. A real man who had my back. Anyway, eventually left that evil pub. They were so dishonouring and disrespectful and filthy. Right, now, where were we? That was a funny little segue, but I must admit, it did me a power of good remembering good old Brian. I don't even know what his last name was. Oh, it'll come to me. It was a funny, I remember I teased him about his name. It'll come to me. I think it was a famous author's surname. It'll come to me. Anyway, where were we? So, the killer was asked for 10 minutes to compose his thoughts. Then, at Whiteford's request, Detective Murphy was recalled to the interview room. For several hours, the polite, handsome young man with brown eyes and dark hair was questioned before being taken to the burnt-out apartment. Based on the information received, arrangements were made for the water police to commence searching the Brisbane River around the Mulbrae Park ferry pontoon. Slowly, through a murderer's own words, a clear picture of exactly what had happened that dreadful night emerged. Around 11:30 p.m. on Saturday, the 21st of March 1964, Whiteford went to the rear of Gracie's shop. With him, Whiteford had his burglar's kit. Oh, that's right, that's where we were at. We've read that. I'll read it again because I got distracted. Mama T got distracted. A leather overnight bag containing tools, including a hacksaw and glass cutter, from the kit. He took a pair of surgical rubber gloves and put them on, a woman's nylon stocking, which is where we got distracted, segued about my friend Brian, which he pulled over his face to hide and distort his features, 2 pieces of a .22 caliber automatic rifle which he quickly assembled, and finally a Japanese-made floating fish knife with a 5/8 inch wide blade, purchased a few days before as part of his preparations. Sounds nasty, doesn't it? Really nasty. Swallowing 3 or 4 tablets of the amphetamine benzodrine, obtained earlier from a chemist shop, weapons in hand, Whiteford leapt through a plate glass window. When you've got benzodrine in your system, you don't feel anything. Jesus. This is this particular maniac here. Also rather handsome looking young man. So, women of Earth, don't be fooled by good looks. Find out the calibre of the soul underneath. In a bedroom, she found sisters Meta Maria Wood. So he found sisters Meta Maria Wood, aged 54, and Grace Gleneen Wood, aged 48, preparing for bed. Both were known to him, as everyone at Cooperoo knew the Woods. Pointing the rifle at them, he demanded money. Terrified, the women replied they were poor and had none. They panicked. Gracie threw bottles from a medicine cabinet at the gunman and threatened to call police. That was very brave, wasn't it? Someone pointing a bloody gun in your face. Jesus. Whiteford became extremely aggressive, probably under the influence of the benzodrine. Pressing the cold knife to Grace's neck, he threatened Meta, "If you move, I'll cut her throat." He walked into the lounge room with Gracie and cut the telephone cord. "Call the cops, would you?" Meta Wood tried to flee. In a drug-crazed frenzy, the robber started shooting, firing 9 shots into them. Whiteford then went outside, but the women were still alive and began screaming for help. Irritated, he reloaded and went back in and emptied the weapon into them. Then they still weren't dead, so I stabbed them. I stabbed the 2 younger ladies twice each. 76-year-old Mrs. Rose Wood, an invalid confined to a wheelchair and dependent on her 2 daughters, had been asleep but woke at the sound of gunshots. The old lady then sat up in bed. I reloaded the gun and I shot her 4 or 5 times. I never knifed her or anything. I went back into the bedroom again and I saw Meta outside the back door. She must have crawled out. I dragged her back inside and I stabbed her once more. What the fuck? Using some newspapers, Whiteford started a fire, which he threw into the bedroom. I thought the whole place would burn down. He left his victims for dead. After smashing his rifle, Whiteford dumped it, the bullets and knife, into the Brisbane River near the Norman Park ferry. Smugly he returned to the shop, expecting a spectacular fire, but found the newspaper had failed to ignite. Re-entering the home, he sprayed lighter fluid around the bedroom. This time it caught and a fierce blaze erupted. He turned on the gas jets on the stove in the kitchen and opened the oven door. Satisfied with his work, the callous killer departed. Grace had been killed by the shots fired earlier, but Meta Woods and her elderly mother were still alive. Summoning all her strength, despite 4 gunshot wounds to her left arm, 2 to her chest, plus deep stabs to her neck, jaw, and behind her left ear, Meta crawled clear of the fire into the lane beside the home. In great pain, she tried to reach a tap to douse the flames and save her poor mother, but was overcome with exhaustion. Unable to move, Miss Woods had to lie covered in blood, listening to her parents' dying whimpers as she was incinerated. Just fucking dreadful. On that Saturday evening, a rock and roll stomp party at a hall 100 yards up Cavendish Road from the woodshop had masked the noise of the gunshots from the low-powered rifle. It was not until 3:50 a.m. that the alarm was raised when a local resident, who lived 50 yards away on the opposite side of Cavendish Road, heard the cackling of flames. After telling his wife to call the fire brigade, he ran to the shop. There he found Meta lying on a concrete path at the rear and dragged her clear of the fire. He burnt Mum alive and killed Gracie, she told him. Within the hour, all available police were hunting the vicious killer. Investigations were directed by CIB Chief Inspector Tom Donovan. Police began a house-to-house canvass of the immediate area, while experts sifted through the ashes for clues. The 3 much-loved women were attacked in their apartment at the rear of the 2 shops they operated on the corner of Cavendish Road and School Lane. Yeah, it is exactly that building that I've walked past many times, and often I've felt energy and wondered about that. Now I know they lost their lives there. Only 40 yards from the heart of the Coorparoo Junction shopping centre, middle-aged spinsters Mrs. Grace and Meta Wood sold gifts, toys, drinks and sweets from their stores. Children from the adjacent Coorparoo State School bought lunches and lollies from them. Their dear mother would often sit in her wheelchair and smile at the youngsters. They had no enemies. The assault on them was cowardly and cruel. The whole community went into shock. My silly old mother made me shut all the windows last night. She is scared of the Coorparoo murderer, one young man told a workmate on the Monday morning following the murders. That man was Chris Whiteford. Police investigations continued. It was discovered that only half an hour before the vicious crime was committed, a man tried to break into the McDonnell and East's department store in George Street in the city. When he could not get in through a window, he smashed a hole in the glass next to a door in an attempt to access the lock. When disturbed by the night watchman, the burglar pointed a gun at the guard and said, "Open the door or I'll shoot you dead." The guard ignored the threat, instead ducking under a window and hiding, confusing the robber. Using fixtures and counters as a shield, he crawled to a telephone and alerted police. He described the man as resembling American television star Ricky Nelson, then a real heartthrob. On Tuesday, 24th of March, following a lead about a man's behaviour at the Brisbane abattoir, police swooped on a house in Sirius Street, Coorparoo, only 1.5 miles from the crime scene. According to work colleagues, Whiteford put a stocking over his head to impersonate the murderer. 4 police officers staked out the property, Whiteford's parents' home, and hid under and inside the house. Police spotters saw Whiteford enter the driveway of the property at 2:45 a.m. Detective Sergeant Murphy, with his pistol drawn, confronted Whiteford. "Police here? Are you armed?" Whiteford produced a pocket knife from his trousers and handed it to a detective. "I didn't think you knew it was me, or I would not have come home." When Murphy asked why he came home, Whiteford replied, "To get my burglar's kit." Whiteford, accompanied by his father, was taken away and charged with the wilful murder of Grace and Rose Wood and with having attempted to kill Meta Wood. Miss Meta Wood spent many weeks in Princess Alexandria Hospital, dangerously ill. Following her release from hospital, Meta identified